Thank you. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. I'll add one thing too. Quincy, super nice guy, incredibly knowledgeable, but to work for him, incredibly intimidating. And I get to spend a little extra time with him this weekend. He's coming to another conference in Baltimore, and I get to drive up there with him. Oh, sorry.
Mary Hart caught it.
Got it?
How those lawyers are.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Everyone now? All right. All right.
Start over.
I'm not going to let anyone hear me again. Say, he is coming. That is the word we have, though. So yeah, if you haven't met him, please introduce yourself. Well, all right. Thank you. And again, I noticed I'm not going to let Jim slip out of here without making a point that he introduced me as Steve. He did not take a stab at my last name. Steve Sabaji is how it's pronounced. And again, you'll notice in there that it says Haley Gant, who is one of our great people from our marketing team. Funny thing about Haley, too, is everybody calls her Heather Grant. So everybody's name just gets mixed up around here. So anyway, it's really nice to be here. It's great to be out in an audience like this again. It's been a long time for me. How about you guys? Yeah? Too long? Well, glad we're here. I'm glad we're all here and being able to do this live. Nothing substitutes for that. But I do have to tell you, for me, being in a Marriott hotel, it's a little triggering. And it's for something that happened to me several years ago. Way back, there was this woman I was married to at the time. She happened to work at Marriott. And I went there to see her in her office one day. And I'm walking through the lobby. You know, it's a regular office building. People are coming and going. I'm going over to the elevator bank. There are kind of, again, people milling all around. And there's this guy kind of making his move through the building, and people seem to be stepping out of his way, I guess. And you know, I'm there, I'm punching the elevator, and he's kind of moving toward me. And there's a guy behind him who seems like he's desperately trying to keep up with this man. And you know, it just turns out that, you know, we get on the elevator, he and I, doors start to close. The guy who's tracking him is trying to get on, and he makes that stab for the door, but they just close. And so we start going up, and I kind of look at him, and I have to make a comment, of course, right? So I say to him, wow, that guy seems like he was in a real hurry. I wonder if he's going to see Mr. Marriott. The gentleman next to me says, he is. That's my bodyguard. Yeah, so I kind of glance over, and having seen his picture in the paper and in magazines, I see that I'm on the elevator with J. Willard Marriott. Fun fact, he likes to be called Bill, by the way, just in case. But yeah, I was reminded of that when I saw the portrait around the corner here. So anyway, you know, again, being one who now is completely embarrassed, I have to say something else. I look at Mr. Marriott and I just simply say, well, don't worry, I got your back now. I'll make sure you get where you need to go. And we had a lovely elevator ride after that. So the reason I like to tell that story, though, and what it really kind of, you know, I like to think it amplifies a little bit, is that idea of, you know, having your back, you know, helping people, making sure you're going to achieve the goals that you want to achieve, right? I mean, making sure that the security that you're looking for is going to be there, the goals that you're going to achieve are going to be accomplished. I mean, think about it for a second. You know, if you had to think about like areas of stress in your life related to financials, you know, you could probably, I think everybody's a little different, but you could probably break it down into just a couple of things. You know, I think the major financial goals people tend to have in their life are things like buying a house, educating their kids, healthcare expenses, and of course, there's retirement. So, you know, there are more ways that you can go in order to achieve these goals now, and there are more tools that are out there, but what's even better is that in the last several decades, the financial services playing field has been leveled a lot. It's been democratized because it allows people now the ability to take control of their situation in a much more proactive way than ever before. This has been, you know, kind of advancing more and more. You know, we've gone from traditional brokerages to no-load mutual fund companies to online investment, and now, you know, this area of the self-directed IRA, where you can really take control of your finances, and you can find a lot of tax advantage strategies that are out there that will allow you to defer and even avoid taxes altogether, and in specific areas like buying a house, educating your children, retirement, healthcare expenses. All those things that are the major stressors can be overcome and achieved with these types of tax-advantaged accounts. And so it's real power that can be put into your hands. Now, just as I transition in, I just want to again introduce myself. My name's Steve Sabaji. Again, I'm with Quest. I have a pretty extensive background. I've been around for a while. Worked in the retirement plan industry field for many, many years. So I've seen, how these plans work. Worked with everything from, 401k to 403b, deferred comp, defined benefits, all of them. So I have a very good understanding of how these plans work and how you can begin to leverage them into your self-directed accounts in order to, again, take advantage of these benefits that these plans have and utilize it for achieving any and all your financial goals. Now, just a quick primer on Quest, who we are. We are the largest self-directed IRA company in the state of Texas. We do have a nationwide clientele base as well. Currently, under administration, we have in excess of $2 billion in assets. And about, I would say, 400 million right now is sitting undirected. So we have clients that are ready to deal. We have clients who are, again, patiently waiting. They're waiting to see what opportunity comes their way, or they're waiting to lend. So again, whatever side of the transaction you're on, you may find opportunities with us through Quest. It doesn't necessarily have to be you setting it up, but if you have a deal and you're looking for money, look us up. Get in touch with us through some of our networking events. You will find, again, that there are people who are out there who are looking to deal. One other thing, I'll just make the quick little disclaimer here. This is all for educational purposes. We at Quest, we do not do anything in the way of tax, legal, or investment advice. And again, it's always important that you know to vet your deals very carefully. Always look into who you're dealing with and do your due diligence before entering any transactions. So what is the self-directed IRA? Fact of the matter is, I get this all the time, where somebody will call in and they'll say, I have a traditional IRA, a rollover IRA, now I want one of those self-directed IRAs. Or I don't see where self-directed IRA is on the application. How do I fill that out? Well, simply put, an IRA is an IRA is an IRA. They're all the same. Self-directed, it's really just a marketing term that is utilized just to distinguish it in this sense. A self-directed IRA really puts you in control of your investing opportunities because you truly get to select the asset that you are investing in. You can set up an IRA and you can open it at Schwab or Fidelity, wherever. Anybody can do that, and anybody can buy the investments that they sell. Now, of course, anybody can set up a self-directed IRA, but not just everybody gets potentially to be in the deal that you're looking at. It's your deal. You are creating it yourself. Nobody is going to know it better than you because it is of your own creation. So that's really where the distinction of a self-directed IRA comes in relative to any others. So what are the benefits? Why would you look at this? Well, first of all, I'd start off by saying diversification. They always say, don't put your eggs all in one basket. I've heard that. I've said that many, many times over the years when I've been in the retirement planning field and working with clients in the traditional asset class areas. And you know what? No matter how diversified you think you are, you're never as diversified as all that when you're dealing in the securities markets. And here's why. There are only probably by now maybe 3,000 or 4,000 publicly traded stocks out there on the various exchanges. There are in excess of 12,000 mutual funds. You tack on ETFs and other types of bundled accounts that are on top of that. And what it basically means is you've got all those types of investments, those pooled investments that are chasing fewer securities to put in them. So you've got more of those chasing fewer stocks overall. I have sat down with clients and looked at their portfolios. And I have picked out, in a case, you might have a client who has a index fund, a large cap index fund, a tech fund, and maybe a large cap stock fund of some sort as well. And you drill down in there, and you'll find something like Apple being the biggest security in each of them. Add to that, in some cases, I've seen clients who also hold Apple individually. So it's not a knock on Apple. I mean, certainly not. I'm not knocking any stock. It just means, though, when you really filter it all down, you don't have as much money spread across the table as you think. And in one case, I showed a client where, he had almost 30%, again, in one security, like Apple. Completely unaware of that. So with the self-directed, again, you're buying an asset class that is completely different to what you can find through publicly traded securities or traditional investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds. What's more is that as real estate investors, we all know that this type of asset class does not correlate to what the stock market does. So it does give you that truer diversification, the advantage that you're seeking by having something that won't necessarily go up and down along with everything else that I have. Now, the tax savings, of course, are the other great advantage. We know with an IRA, we're deferring our taxes. In some cases, we get to deduct what's going in. It's always going to be deferred. And in some cases, depending on the type of account we have, money could also be coming out tax-free. Tax-free for things like buying a house, for sending our kids to college, medical expenses, retirement. Remember those? Those big stressors that we have that we're planning for in our lives? So yeah, we can leverage the tax advantages of these accounts as well. And then to the point I made earlier, here, again, you're really getting to invest in what you know. You may have specific knowledge that many people don't when it comes to real estate investing in where you live as opposed to someone else, deals that you have access to. So the real advantage here is that you're likely going to be less surprised by the investment that you select for your self-directed IRA because of the fact that you've done the research, you've done the homework, and through whatever means, your work, your hobbies, your areas of expertise as a whole, you know more about that asset than anybody, and it's likely going to perform the way you expect it to. And you know what? I'll throw in one more. I think that with the self-directed, in my opinion, there's another element that you get, which is a true advantage too. And I think of it as kind of a social investing element to it. Think about what happens. Let's say you have your self-directed IRA, you found a property that you want to buy, you're going to rehab it. What goes into that? First of all, you're purchasing the asset at an ideal price. You're getting it at the opportune price. Now you're going to invest in it. You're going to put money into the renovation costs. Well, what does that lead to? Well, it means you're stimulating the economy. You're buying the materials, the source materials locally. You're hiring contractors locally in all likelihood. So you're helping, stimulate the economy at a couple of different points. And then finally, you've renovated the property, you've brought it up. Now you're ready to sell it to a motivated buyer, and they're going to help the community grow. So again, you're doing a variety of different things that are ultimately not only going to benefit you, but benefit the area as well. It's kind of cool when you think about it. You can do good and make money at the same time. Now, what can we self-direct? It's interesting. Jim asked that question about the different types of accounts that many of you among us have. So we categorize them into three different areas. We call them the personal accounts, the business accounts, and the special accounts, so to speak. So the personal, that starts with the traditional and the Roth IRA. And traditional, again, most of the time we see that today, it's rollover dollars that are funding it. So again, everything there is pre-tax. We're just deferring down the road. The Roth, as we know, we put money in, we've paid taxes on it today, but those earnings over time down the road, once we meet the qualifiers, we get that money tax-free. The business accounts, the employer accounts, a lot of details here. And again, a lot of people, this is a good conversation to have if you are self-employed or have a business of your own. Even if you're still in a 9-to-5 job, doesn't mean you can't have one of these accounts as well and fund it to the fullest extent. So these business accounts, these employer plans can give you a great opportunity to put more money away and still self-direct. And then finally, the special accounts. Again, these are some great tools. The Coverdell Education Savings Account lets you put in money, it grows deferred, and if it comes out for what's called qualified education expenses, the distributions are tax-free. And again, these terms are great that they use, qualified education expense. That has a very broad definition. We think of that as being tuition or something along those lines, tutoring, uniforms, if that's a need. So it's a broad spectrum of things, but even in this day and age now, the provisions have been liberalized to a point where you can use that to pay for Wi-Fi. Especially with this last year and everything we've gone through with the pandemic, qualified education expenses has changed a lot in terms of what that means. And then there's my favorite, the health savings account. This is really, this is the thing that is truly triple tax-free. Deductible, deferred, and tax-free if it's used for, again, qualified medical expenses. There's a complete IRS publication which can tell you what a qualified medical expense is. And again, it's very broad in terms of what that means. We would expect it for things like, a doctor's appointment or surgery or, any of those kinds of things. But again, it includes some things that are, rather unique. But again, if there's that demonstrated medical necessity, for things like a seeing eye dog or Braille or, again, it's a whole host of things that is built into that tax code that gives you a lot of places where you can utilize these funds the way that they're intended to be utilized. All right, so what can we self-direct? Well, everything we just talked about can be self-directed through Quest or through your self-directed IRA itself. What's nice too is that those things can be partnered. So let's say you have an IRA and it has what might be considered a relatively small balance and you want to go in on a project, but you also have a SEP IRA and you have a rollover IRA. You can utilize all three of those together for a single transaction. You can partner with a spouse. Again, you can partner in any number of different ways to utilize all the IRAs that you have, or ESA and HSA and IRA. Any way you want to do it. Now, the thing that you need to just be aware of is that when it comes to partnering, everything must be done proportionally. Proportional to the ownership as it is going to be on the title of whatever asset is you are buying. So if it's a 50-50 split, 60-40, whatever the case may be, all expenses must be paid by way of that proportion, and all income that comes back in must be divided by way of the proportion. But again, it certainly opens up a lot of ways that you can leverage multiple accounts into a single investment. Now, there are certain things that we are not permitted to do with a self-directed IRA. There are going to be restrictions on certain people we can do business with, types of transactions, and then certain investments as well. But again, all of this, it's pretty straightforward. We at Quest are here to help clarify any of these rules that may pop up. And the nice thing is that any of these restrictions can easily be worked around and avoided. Now, there are restrictions in terms of who you are allowed to deal with. They are what they are referred to as disqualified persons. So these are people who you cannot basically do business with your IRA. So it basically comes down to a certain part of relations that you are not permitted to interact with. There's like a whole routine that they teach us at Quest. It's kind of like being a flight attendant, telling you where everything is on the plane. I am not doing that. Logan, if you want to do it in the back, that'd be great. But basically what it comes down to is this. You and your spouse, ascendants and descendants and their spouses, and any kind of entity that they own, control, manage, operate, or are highly compensated by. Those are where the restrictions will come into play. Now, notice what's not in there. It's ascending, descending, but it's not side to side. So it can't be mom or dad or child, but it can be brother or sister or cousin. So again, it does still give you a fair amount of people who you are allowed to interact with. All right, now real quick, everybody just pull out your pens and your paper. I'm going to give you 2 minutes so you can just write this down real quick so that you can get this. Yeah, snap a picture if you need to. All right, 2 minutes. Ready? Go. Stop. Yes. We have this on our website. This is probably one of the best charts I think I've ever seen that really tries to lay it out as clearly as possible. As it turns out, Quincy Long is the one who put this together for us. It is on our website, but again, this is kind of the definitive thing that really will kind of chart it for you about as clearly as you could expect to find it. Now, what can I not transact in? So basically, when it comes to those people that we described, the ones you cannot interact with, you cannot buy, sell, trade, you basically can't provide services. So again, they're basically not going to allow you to take advantage of the benefit of your IRA today. But again, this is designed to stop things from self-dealing, conflicts of interest. So again, they're kind of these rules that the IRS is saying, look, this is for your benefit tomorrow. It's not for you to be able to utilize these assets today. And again, just important to be aware of what you are allowed to do, what you can't do. Some of these are very gray areas, as we've been discussing today with some of you along the way. But again, this is the perfect type of conversation to have with an IRA specialist where we can look at the details of a situation that you're contemplating and then perhaps clarify it a little further for you. Now, finally, the restrictions on investments. Here it's very short, it's very brief. There are basically 2 things you cannot invest in for an IRA. That would be life insurance and collectibles. So life insurance, again, pretty much know what that is. And again, frankly, there's no advantage to using life insurance in an IRA anyway because of the tax advantages that it already offers. So there would be no real practical purpose to use it in the first place. Collectibles we define as something that really doesn't have a value that we could easily determine. So an antique, a piece of artwork, or rare coins, things of that nature. Where the value could be this or it could be that, but we can't definitively say what somebody will pay for it. So it has to be some kind of a hard asset that has a value that can be determined, based on whatever that asset may be. Other than that, it's pretty wide open. So, again, let's not talk about what we can't do, let's talk about what we can do. Because again, here it is a very wide open field of what you can utilize for self-directed investing. Here at Quest, we primarily break it into 3 separate areas that our team deals in. Real estate being defined as a piece of property, rental, fix and flip, wholesale deal, anything along those lines. Private entities can also mean a variety of different things. It could be investing through a trust, it could be an LLC, it could be a syndication deal or a joint venture. And then there's that area of promissory notes where you get to be the bank. And again, it can be secured, it can be unsecured, it can be any kind of arrangement that you wish to set up. But these are going to be the three primary areas, and when you deal with us at Quest, again, you'll be dealing with a specialist who actually works in that asset category. And again, they pretty much know the ins and the outs, as I'm sure you do as well, because again, these are the deals you're finding and vetting. But again, these are the options you're going to be able to go into. Now, this is kind of what a transaction would look like through Quest. Start with the new account itself. So we start at that point. What's my financial goal? What's the right type of IRA to utilize for it? Is it Roth? Is it traditional? Is it a rollover? SEP? Whatever the case may be. We get the account established. Most often, all accounts are open unfunded because we're getting funding from another source. So wherever that may be. It could be coming from an old 401k plan, it could be an existing IRA. So again, then we've got the account open, we arrange to have the funds brought in, your account is then funded. Now, it's up to you. What do you want to invest in? Any of the things that we've already discussed. That fix and flip, the renovation, the rental, the private entity, any and all those things on the table. Now, once you do that, it's time to load up and get that investment ready to go. Here again is where the specialist comes into play. You work one-on-one with one of our Quest specialists for the asset that you're dealing in. This also can now be done very easily through our client service portal, where you can initiate the investment, take out some of the paperwork that otherwise you would have had to have done in the past. What I like about the portal too is that you do not lose anything in the way of the Quest customer service deliverables by using the portal. It's not a way where we're just trying to push you to a website, but rather what you do is you still get assigned a specialist. That's a person who's going to shepherd you through the entire process and work with you. You're going to have their name. You're going to be able to message with them. You can, of course, always call them. But through the portal, you also have that ability where you're going to be able to track the progress of your investment in real time up until its completion. And once you're there, again, Quest will then go ahead and complete the transaction for you, having everything properly titled in the name of your IRA, and you will be ready to go. And then we will take over the administration from that point. So, what's the deal look like? Well, one of the popular things that we're seeing a lot right now is people who are really taking advantage of what we call the OPI, other people's IRAs, other people's money. Taking advantage of that, leveraging yourself further, getting more bang for your buck, so to speak. So, from the perspective of the borrower, what are they getting out of this? Well, they get to create their own source for the funding. Again, it's out of the somewhat of the mainstream perhaps, but you're getting to find the assets on your own private way. And remember, this is where a lot of the money is these days. The reason that this has become so popular is because of all the money that is tied up now in retirement plans and that resource. And now we're in this phase where a lot of people are coming up on retirement. So a lot of that money is about to come loose. It's about to enter into the market. And again, with the way the markets have been and historically over time, people are looking to take more control for themselves personally. And they are looking to find ways to diversify beyond what the stock market has itself offered on its own. And like I said earlier, there are a lot of people who are sitting on the money as it stands now. They're looking for places to put it. They want to deploy their assets. So this is an opportune time. If you are looking to lend or if you are looking to borrow, this is a great place to try to take advantage of that. Now, in terms of the note itself, the structure of that, it's pretty straightforward. It's a negotiation. I think our good friend Jeff Watson is here. He has a quote that he likes to use. I think he said it's from the Bible. I'm not good at quoting the Bible. But I think it goes along the lines of, Jeff, if you're here, jump up and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it says something like, the borrower is the servant to the lender. Yeah, I mean, again, you are the bank in this case. You are the ones, you're not going to let somebody who wants to borrow your money dictate the terms to you, right? But it's a negotiation. So again, however you want to structure the deal, base it on what value. Is it going to be the current value or the repair value? Is it going to be just for a certain amount of the loan? What's the fixed rate, points, payment schedule? Is there going to be collateralization to it? You know, again, any of these kinds of things, all subject to negotiation. The thing that I like seeing too, and that I've been hearing anecdotally from people, is that even any of the transaction-oriented fees are subject to the negotiation as well. So again, it's all a question of you and that party vetting your prospect and how you wish to go forward with that deal itself. Now, remember, just as it pertains to the transaction, the thing we always have to remember is who can we and who can we not interact with as it pertains to the deal. So remember, the disqualified people, say it with me, everybody. You and your spouse, ascending, descending, and their spouses, and any kind of entity that they own, control, operate, manage, or are highly compensated by. And again, we're setting the terms. You and the borrower are creating the terms of the loan. And you know, what's interesting too is, you know, you may think that, you know, it always has to be real estate that's involved as a securitization for it. But actually, we've seen a lot of unique cases of what people will use as collateral. The thing to remember is, if I'm using something that's a little unusual as collateral, what if I have to foreclose? What if I get this asset? You know, I heard a story just recently of one of our Quest clients who does a lot in the way of lending. And he likes to use as collateral, one thing that he often will use for collateral purposes is ammunition. It is kind of, I never thought of that one, but that is an interesting idea of what you can use. There's another great story I heard. Oh, yes, sir.
Just, I don't mean to take you off track, but your first point up there, as a private lender, can I combine an amount from my self-directed 401k with an amount of personal capital to create a loan, or is that considered self-dealing?
So are we talking about doing this to a non-disqualified person?
Yes.
So it can be done, absolutely. But really, in essence, probably the cleanest way that it would be done is really you'd just be issuing two different loans, one from the IRA and one personally itself.
Okay, makes sense, thanks.
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
Ah. Just curious, what kind of collateral are we looking at too? The other good one I heard was dental equipment that somebody used, you know, and actually the story I heard on this was that they did actually, the borrower defaulted, they had to collect on the equipment, but in this case, fortunately, they knew where and how to turn it around and recoup their investment with regard to selling off the collateral. So again, there's no end to funny stories that we sometimes hear. And again, one of the things that we always like to make a note of with regard to Quest is that we do a lot in the way of ongoing education. And even with respect to this, on our website, you can find in our archives, you know, where you can, you know, kind of hear stories or learn more about the ins and outs of doing these types of notes. And like I said, education, that's kind of one of our things. Our staff is highly educated, but we want our clients to be highly educated as well. Educated clients are the best clients to work with. And at Quest, I have to tell you, I think these are the best clients I've worked with in quite some time. Because again, I think everybody that's coming to us knows a great deal about what they're looking to do. They have clear ideas as to what they want to achieve and accomplish, the right types of accounts to use. And again, they have a good understanding and they ask the right questions. But again, the education that we offer, it's not only just about a self-directed IRA, it's about the latest things that are going on in the way of taxes that are changing or areas of investing. It's really anything that potentially is related to a topic that any self-directed IRA investor would want to know about. So it's every week we're doing webinars. I think we're like somewhere around 3 to 4 a week that we offer. We have our self-directed IRA Saturdays, which we do. We also have our investment mixers and our happy hour. This has become a very popular thing, especially in the COVID year that we just came through. It's what we call our virtual happy hour. It's every other Wednesday. Tomorrow will be the next one. And it's basically a chance for you to kind of sit at your computer, have a glass of wine or a beer, and kind of make your pitch, put yourself out there in a virtual environment. Are you looking to invest? Are you looking to lend? You know, do you have a deal that you want somebody to know about? And it gives you an opportunity to interact with like-minded investors. And you basically just kind of put your information out there. It goes into the chat box. You follow up on your own. And again, you see if you want to strike a deal. But we are continuing to try to make those types of platforms available to all of our self-directed IRA clients or potential sponsors as well. So how do you learn more? Well, next step is to talk to somebody like myself or Logan or one of the specialists at Quest. And you can do that any variety of ways. Go to our website, you can go into the chat. Come on Monday. I'm on the chat usually on Mondays. So just drop in, say, hi Steve, I met you in Virginia. There's also just giving us a straight up phone call. And then of course, you can email an IRA specialist directly through our mailbox and ask for a time for a consultation. Simple as that. All right, so I'm gonna close out. And just as I'm kind of getting ready to wrap up, I wanna just share a couple final thoughts. And you know, again, it kind of takes me back to my days as a retirement planner. And there's somebody I've always thought about over the years that he wasn't a client of mine, he was actually a friend of my parents. And he was what you would call, I think, the nice way of saying it would be a type A personality. When I was younger, I one time told my mom what I thought the A stood for with regard to this gentleman. But he was, you know, again, very assertive, very business-oriented, work, work, work. That was his thing. I think this man would have been very happy if he had died at his office. Like that would have been just the perfect end for him. Well, one day, this gentleman, who was a very successful man, he was an executive at McCormick Spice, a high-level executive there, but in an economic downturn, he learned that no matter who you are or what you do for a company, nobody is immune to potentially getting laid off. And he found himself at a fairly young age out of work. And because of his background, his experience, and his salary requirements, at this point in his life, he was not likely to find a job that was going to meet his requirements. So he suddenly found himself unexpectedly retired. Now the thing is that he'd never contemplated retirement. So he really had nothing in the way of a plan. He hadn't really minded the store very much when it came to the investments that he had. He had accumulated a fair amount, but again, just hadn't really figured out what to do with it, how to deploy it. And I think about him all the time, because the thing that really resonated with me about him was when I was home one time and my mom, somehow the topic came up that she ran into him, and I asked, kind of what he was doing, and she told me that it appeared, from what she could tell when she crossed paths with him, that he must have been getting up every day as if he was going to work. He was putting on, like his jacket and tie and everything. And the place she saw him was down at the post office buying stamps. That's what his life had become. Because he didn't have a plan, he didn't have an idea as to where he was going, he'd never contemplated that next phase of life. And again, money, I don't think that was necessarily his issue. But it was the plan. He didn't have the plan. I always thought of this in the past from the standpoint of, what are you going to do with yourself in retirement? Have you looked that far down the road? Do you have that plan? But I also think to myself these days, how perfect would it have been for a guy like that to be self-directing? His full-time job could be that investor, the guy doing that stuff. And again, that whole gamut of the fix and flip, the ability for that social investing. One of the other great things that we do, private companies, funding up a company that's not ready to go IPO yet, but getting in on that ground floor, lending them money or buying in. All of those kinds of things at your fingertips. So those opportunities are there. So the thing I've always wanted to emphasize with people when it comes to that retirement planning, get your plan together. Not just about the investing, but about where are you going? What are the financial goals you have? The short term, the long term. Is it, again, education for your kids? Is it healthcare expenses, which are going to be enormous now and into retirement? What's the tax strategy? What's your buy plan? What's your sell plan? All those kinds of things. It's all interconnected. And it really does impact us down to the core of our personal life. So I say to you that I want you to get that plan moving. And if it's the self-directed that's going to help you, again, there are a myriad of reasons why it could. And if you feel like it is, then let's have that conversation. And with that being the case, to really try to push things forward, Logan has handed out some of the applications and the forms that you would need for a self-directed IRA. Take a look at them. If you're interested, we are going to run a promotion for today and tomorrow to waive the account opening fee to help get you on the way. Again, maybe it's a case where you've got the IRA, but now you need the HSA. You've got those grandkids that are getting ready for some expenses that they're going to hit relative to education. And now there are more opportunities that are out there. And again, remember, you can partner those accounts. Some people overlook those ESAs because they say to themselves, well, that's such a small amount. Well, that on top of what you have, on top of your IRA and your HSA, it can really start to amount to some significant leveraging on those investments. So, again, I want to just put it out there. We're here to help. If there is anything we can do, we are right outside. Logan and I are going to be here over the course of today and tomorrow. And I just want to say thank you guys for your attention. And if there's anything we can help with, just let us know. Thank you guys very much.